There's a story I once heard that stayed with me for a very long time. A young married couple had been together for a little over a year, and they fought almost every week. Not because of money, not because of cheating, but because every time the husband came home late, the wife completely lost control. She would yell, cry, then shut down for days. The husband couldn't understand why something so small always became such a huge problem. And honestly, the wife didn't understand either. She didn't know why her reactions felt so intense. Until much later, during one honest conversation, she suddenly realized something. When she was a child, her father used to come home late, drunk, and constantly fighting with her mother. She had been afraid of someone coming home late since she was 8 years old. And without realizing it, she carried that fear, completely intact, into her marriage. This is something very few people say out loud. Many conflicts in relationships are not really between the two adults living together. They are between the children those adults once were. Children who are still quietly sitting inside them, reacting the only way they learned how, when they were young. People often blame relationship problems on in-laws, family interference, or cultural expectations. And yes, those things do matter. I'm not denying that. But the deeper root usually lies somewhere else. It lies in each person's relationship with their own parents, not their partner's parents, their own. I once knew a man who grew up with a father who was cold, critical, and emotionally distant. Years later, he got married, and every time his wife gave even the smallest feedback, something simple like, "You leave your things everywhere," he would immediately become defensive, silent, or aggressive. His wife couldn't understand why he reacted so strongly to something so small. And honestly, neither could he. Until one day, he realized something painful. He wasn't hearing his wife's voice. He was hearing his father's voice from years ago. Two completely different people, but somehow his brain had unconsciously fused them together. That's how old emotional patterns work. They don't knock on the door and announce themselves. They quietly slip into our relationships and start controlling us from the inside, while we mistake them for natural reactions. If we grew up emotionally neglected, we often enter relationships carrying an invisible expectation, an expectation that our partner will somehow fill all the emptiness our parents never could. That expectation is rarely spoken out loud, but it is incredibly heavy. And when the other person, who is also just a human being, with limits, with wounds, with exhaustion of their own, cannot meet that invisible expectation, the anger that appears becomes much larger than the actual moment happening in front of us. I'll admit honestly, I've done this too. I once entered a relationship carrying a deep need for constant reassurance, constant emotional validation. Without realizing, those were the needs of a child, not the needs of an adult in love. I expected the other person to read my emotions without me having to say them out loud. And when they couldn't, I felt hurt. I called it, "They don't understand me." Only later did I realize, nobody can read another person's mind. That wasn't their failure. It was an unrealistic emotional expectation I had been carrying long before I ever met them. So what do we do with all of this? The answer I eventually found was not cut your parents off, hate your past. It's not about that at all. It's about learning to clearly see how your parents shaped you psychologically, to face it honestly, to name it, and then consciously decide which parts you want to keep and which parts you no longer want to carry forward. It's a slow process, an uncomfortable one, but an incredibly necessary one. Because if we never do that work, we don't truly enter relationships as adults. We enter them as children, carrying unresolved emotional baggage. And our partner ends up struggling with burdens they were never warned about. And there's another thing. A healthy relationship needs room to breathe. The decisions inside a home, finances, parenting, even something as small as where to place furniture, should primarily belong to the two people actually living inside that home. When parents, even with genuine love and good intentions, become too deeply involved in those decisions, the couple never fully becomes an independent family unit. The relationship stays emotionally dependent, constantly waiting for approval from an older generation. And honestly, living that way becomes exhausting. There's also one principle I've come to believe is more important than most relationship advice people give. Don't constantly bring your relationship conflicts back to your parents. At first, that may sound strange. After all, they're the people closest to you, the people you trust most. So what's wrong with sharing? But the problem is, every time you go back and say, "He did this, she said that," you unknowingly place another brick in the emotional wall between your parents and your partner. Your parents hear only one side. They love you. Naturally, they begin building a negative image of the other person. And even if the couple later reconciles, that image often never fully disappears. Small conflicts should be solved between the couple themselves. Bigger conflicts may need support from a neutral third party, a therapist, a counselor, or someone both people trust equally, not one side's parents. And this matters too, maybe more than people realize. The biological child must be the one who sets boundaries with their own family, not the partner. If your parents interfere too much, it is your responsibility to speak with them, gently, respectfully, but clearly. Because they are your parents, you understand them. You know how to communicate with them without unnecessarily hurting them. Expecting your partner, someone who already had to adapt to an entirely unfamiliar family system, to fight that battle alone is deeply unfair. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself what you might still be carrying from your old family into your present relationships? Not to blame yourself, but to understand what you're carrying so you can place it down where it belongs instead of unconsciously placing it onto the person you love. I truly believe relationships can be beautiful, but they only become truly beautiful when two people enter them with compassionate eyes. Eyes that can see each other clearly, see each other's old wounds clearly, and still choose to build something new together, instead of simply repeating what they inherited from childhood.